Welcome to the Pickleball Innovators podcast, which shines a spotlight on the movers and shakers in the fast-growing pickleball club space. Today's guest is Cameron Linder, the CEO of Pickleball Insurance Program. In this episode, Cameron shares the biggest pickleball insurance trends impacting club operators today, including common coverage gaps, risk management lessons facilities are learning in real time, and why insurance details matter more than ever as the industry matures. We also discuss the value of intimate industry events like the Pickleball Innovators Summit, the evolution of the pickleball business landscape, and why Cameron believes pickleball has the potential to become a lasting fixture in American culture. Let's dive in.
All right, Cameron, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you because you were a sponsor at last year's Pickleball Innovators Summit and obviously talked about pickleball club insurance and some of the gaps or things pickleball club operators may not be thinking about. And so I thought it would be great to just chat with you to share that information a little bit more broadly.
Yeah, it's still 3, almost 4 years into this. The devil is still in the details. And even just last week, I reviewed two competitor policies with what I would consider to be good carriers, names that, at least in the commercial insurance world, I would recognize, right? And I'm still finding bodily injury to sporting participants exclusions, which is the main thing people are concerned about. And I will still commonly find assault and battery exclusions. And even in the last 2 weeks, there's been multiple fights at pickleball facilities, one in Florida that involved 20 different people. And so these are still very common things that I find on competitor policies. And what I encounter with especially new venture pickleball facilities or even some of the franchisees that have been renewing their policies for a couple of years, these details are critical, and you don't know you have a problem until you have a claim that tells you have a problem. So that's one of the biggest things I try to highlight for folks, whether they're a new venture or they're reviewing their insurance. You really have to look at the details, particularly the exclusions. What is covered is not important. What's not covered is way more important. So that's my biggest caution and biggest sermon point, if you will, for anybody that's dealing with their insurance in the pickleball space.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you share maybe a couple examples of things that oftentimes maybe aren't covered with other insurance programs that really do need to be covered within a pickleball facility?
Other than those two obvious ones, fights and assaults and brawls and et cetera, and obviously injuries to pickleball players, believe it or not, the number one claim in pickleball over the last 4 years, the most frequent, I should say, is actually a property claim. And this is another area where, first of all, a lot of club owners I found don't understand the need for property insurance if they don't own the building. But the number one claim in a pickleball facility today is actually a sewer backup claim. And that's not anything anybody would have expected, but it makes sense because they're going into all these old warehouses or these old structures, and the plumbing has been sitting without any water running through it for who knows how long. And anything inside of there becomes like a rock. And so now suddenly, when you get people using the facilities, it clogs. And you go, oh, okay, that just sounds like a mess. No, because I've had to replace like 4 or 5 courts when they have to cut through the foundation to access the pipe and replace it. And so it's not just an issue of cleaning up gray water or a spill in the bathroom and you close down the bathrooms. In many cases, you have to tear up courts and then replace the plumbing and then relay the court. And that's not an inexpensive thing to do. And a lot of these policies, again, if they don't have property coverage, they're just paying for that out of their own pocket. And especially in the first year, which is usually when these things happen, it's not like they have a bunch of extra cash laying around to redo work, right? But this can be insured. Our policies insure it. But again, that's one of those things where most of these property policies that are being put together, they'll either have no sewer backup coverage because it's a standard exclusion in your core property policy. Most carriers will add something, but it's either completely absent or it's very limited. So it'll be like $5,000. And the average amount we've paid out on sewer backup claims is closer to, if we have to tear up the court, especially, is closer to 40 grand. So
Wow.
this is one of those things where if it's not covered or if it's too small of a coverage limit, you're just paying out of pocket. And that's not why people purchase insurance. The thing about sewer backup coverage too is that it's very inexpensive. This is not one of these things where adding it in or increasing the limit is suddenly going to make it unaffordable. It's just the details really matter. And somebody can save money on a cheap policy, and they're not bragging about how much they saved when they're paying $10,000, $15,000 out of pocket for something that could have been covered.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, it's not a sexy topic, but it can really make or break you at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, as I often say, insurance is life and death for your business. And if somebody needs open heart surgery, they're not going to the doctor to check if they're the cheapest doctor out there, right? No, they're going to the doctor that has done the scans, has taken the blood work, and that has done hopefully 1,000 of these things so that you don't die on the table. That's like insurance for your business, because otherwise you're just one injury lawsuit or property disaster away from bankruptcy. So I try to remind people of that because the temptation is to always go for the cheapest. And insurance is just not a commodity. It's a critical product that is custom designed for every single person that buys it. And it's really more about the partnership. Obviously, that I think we're a pretty good partner, but it's really about the partnership with somebody that really knows your business.
Certainly. And I mentioned that you shared some of these insights at last year's Pickleball Innovators Summit, and you'll be again a partner at this year's event in October. What's one insight or strategy you're really excited to share with the attendees at this year's event?
Yeah, now that we're several years in and we have some data and we have some experience, there are common claims that come up. And I don't just mean like the sewer backup claim, I mean in terms of people getting injured, right? And one of the things that we've learned from insuring bowling centers for almost 40 years that directly applies to the pickleball space too is look, there is absolutely a right way and a wrong way to handle a customer that's injured. And what we are actively doing, we were waiting for to have enough data and enough scenarios. What we are actively doing is building training content so that staff members who are engaging with customers who maybe got injured or owners can train their staff in the proper way to not only interact with a customer, because it's a very emotional equation. You don't want to go in and say, well, hey, dummy, if you had only looked where you were going, that's not going to go well, right? From a TLC standpoint, how to handle that customer, but then also what to document, how to document, so that if there is a claim that turns into a lawsuit, that the business can be properly defended. For instance, video coverage is such a critical piece of this. And we've encountered situations where they'll tell us, yeah, we have video cameras, but like they're the play site cameras, right? It's not really geared towards surveillance. And the quality of the cameras is the same, but it comes down to, but the play site camera only keeps the footage for 48 hours. That's not going
Yeah.
to cut it. What we want to see is at least 30 days in places like New York or Florida, where the litigation is more extreme and the lawyers are more cunning. You want to go even further, 60 days, even 90 days. So there's a lot of lessons learned there that I'm looking forward to sharing. And I've had a lot of requests from people over the last several years, like, hey, what should we do? And I have answers for these things, but like I said, I'm trying to gather enough data so it can really be tailored. And we're at that point now where we can do that.
Wonderful. I'll be excited to hear more in
Yeah.
October. But like I mentioned, you are a returning sponsor for this year. But I'm just curious to hear your perspective on how the smaller, more focused environment of the summit impacted the conversations that you were able to have with operators.
Absolutely. I love the smaller, more intimate events. And out of all the events I go to every year, whether they're in the pickleball space or the bowling space, the smaller events are just way more valuable in my mind. They bring together people in a manner where it's not hectic, it's not pressurized. Anytime you're at a big trade show, it's okay, I got 30 seconds with this person, right? And that's not really a good experience for a vendor or a customer. In that environment, you're hardcore getting sold, and nobody really enjoys that. Whereas in a smaller, more intimate roundtable environment like you guys do so well, you actually get to know people, right? And you get to know, yeah, okay, that's Cameron, or and in my case last year, that's Cameron's wife, right? And we get to interact as real human beings and build relationships and have open-ended conversations and really start to learn from each other as opposed to trying to sell to each other, right? And so I love that environment. You guys do such a fantastic job of balancing the educational side of the event, obviously from a vendor perspective, the opportunity side of the event, but also just frankly the human being side of the event. It's a very high quality, high touch, meaningful is the word I want to use, meaningful interaction. And that's why I'm excited to come back and excited to support this event because I know I told you this in person last year. It's absolutely the best run event, whether you're thinking small format or big format in the pickleball space that I've ever been to. Absolutely. If anybody else is watching this, they should go and they should participate because it's such a well-run event. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Cameron. What a glowing endorsement. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you deserve it.
Thank you.
It's been really exciting and fun to engage with all the people that are getting into pickleball and that are perfecting their models and building their clubs. And I have so much passion and hope for where this industry is going to go and really to become that next fixture of American culture. I really believe it has that potential. And we're entering a phase in the business cycle of pickleball where you're seeing some separation, right? You're seeing some competition. Obviously, you're also seeing some people not make it, but you're seeing a lot of people make it really well. And so the more that these business owners can dig in, like at an event like this, and learn about how to run their businesses, learn from other people's mistakes, learn from other people's successes, that will sharpen them and it will make them better business owners, especially in the pickleball space, so that this industry doesn't experience some of the hardships that like we've seen in Europe, whether it was with paddle. What's kind of nice in a certain way is that the real estate market being difficult to conquer is actually slowing down the growth. And I think that's a good thing because it's really forcing prudent economic thinking, and that's critical. And so I have a lot of hope for this industry. I think that it's going to be huge. I think it will be, for my bowling folks, sadly, I think it will be bigger than bowling. Pickleball, it plays a critical role in my mind, reknitting the social fabric of communities because we're bringing together all kinds of people, wrapping them around a really engaging social sport and forming relationships post COVID that were strained and separated and 6 feet apart and all this stuff. Pickleball to me has the potential to really reknit that social fabric. And I truly believe that. That's part of that passion and what I see in the potential of this sport.
Yeah, that shines through.
Thank you.